Hello, and welcome to Split Your Head. I'm your host, Bob, and today's special guest is David Stepanavicius.
Stepanavicius, man, you nailed it.
Stepanavicius! Okay, almost.
There we go.
Yeah,
Hell
Stepanavicius. The guitarist of the guitarist of Vancouver-based death metal band Atræ Bilis. On top of creating some of the most progressive and brutal extreme metal, though, David also runs a horror t-shirt company called Fulci Rots, with one hand masterfully producing mind-melting riffs and the other creating some electrifying genre merch. I just had to have him on to find out when this guy actually sleeps. So, David, when do you sleep? Because you're making so much music, so much merch. Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I'm a pretty grumpy guy. I think most of my closest circle would agree there. I don't know. I just prioritize being creative, I think, above everything else. Does mean a lot of alone time, but I kind of like that. I think the older I get, the more introverted I've become, and it also allows me to do things at my own pace, which is effectively how I first picked up guitar in the first place. I kind of got sick of the guitarist from an old band I used to play with dragging his heels on learning things. I just thought, fuck it, I'm just going to buy a guitar and figure it out, So I think I've always kind of just had that headspace about me.
So before learning guitar, then what was your role in that band?
I played bass for, I think it was about 8 years. I still wrote, the core of the music and a lot of the lyrics. On bass, but it would be transcribed over to guitar. The writing process for that band was a little bit different. I would actually sequence, a drum machine and have all the patterns and things intact. It's very different to Atræ Bilis. It's much more of a collaborative effort, especially with Luca, the drummer, in the songwriting and stuff. But at that time, it kind of felt like I had a template ready to go, and I just needed my friends to kind of do their parts. And I'm a pretty impatient guy by most measures. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess to my nervous system, it means I've got to make sure that I'm getting ample sleep and meditating most mornings. But once I'm up and ready to go, I'm pretty East Coast, actually, which is funny.
East Coast.
It's not the pace here. Yeah, I find East Coast people to be much more snappy.
Yeah, we're very go here. Whereas I think the West Coast, where Vancouver is in Canada, is much more likely to have meditation and smoothies and such. So you've got a bit of that down, I think.
Yeah. I will say it's lunchtime. I'd feel weird. Munging down on a burger in the middle of an interview. So I feel like, sipping on a smoothie might be a little more polite of me, that. But yeah, no problem. If you don't have a problem with it, I can start cooking a burger and I can mug on that. But
no, whatever works, whatever works. But so you were in bands for a long time back in Australia, where you're from. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia. Yeah.
And then you came over to Canada a few years ago, and that's kind of where Atræ Bilis came together. Is that right?
Yeah. I was trying to jam with quite a few people, and it's quite cliquey here. You've got your friends or frenemies or whatever, and that's kind of like it. So it was a little difficult for me to crack. I also felt like a lot of people, when I first moved here, maybe thought I was transient, or maybe they just didn't give a shit. Maybe I'm not cool enough, whatever the case may be. I actually couldn't line up jams with other local people. So I met Luca in a record store of all places.
Wow.
He had a really sick, stack of wax, and I just asked him if he had heard a couple of things that I was thumbing through, and he was also a transplant. He's from Serbia, had been living in Vancouver, I believe, about 7 years at that time. and yeah, he was just a super nice guy, and ends up that he was a drummer, and I had come out of riff retirement. I'd bought my first guitar in many, many, many years. I put music aside to focus on my studies, and yeah, I guess things just lined up, and yeah, we've been jamming ever since. So yeah, there are other Canadians in the band. Our bass player Miles is from Vancouver, and our singer Jordan, he's a little more of a suburban boy, but you know, he's from around here as well. But yeah, it was an interesting one. But you know, band's great, dudes are great, and you know, even though it's Vancouver based, it feels a little spicier than that. A few other ingredients in the mix.
Yeah, so. Like is there like a death metal scene or like a metal scene in Vancouver, would you say?
It's strange. Like I feel like there's a lot of bands across the spectrum of genres that are really successful. But it seemed like they kind of had to do that by breaking out of the local scene. And the bands that immediately come to mind are bands like Arcspire, Unleash the Archers. Yeah, they're all from Vancouver. I know I'm missing a couple here as well. But as far as death metal, I guess there is, you know, maybe it's because we're from the nearby vicinity of, you know, Ross Bay and the Ross Bay cult. You know, it seems like there's quite a lot of like bestial inspired death metal bands. Okay. And of course, what they call the Covenant Circle. You know, which is I'm not like familiar. An esoteric Black Death kind of thing. Yeah, so the guys from
that sounds cool.
You know, Auroch, Mitochondrion, Reversed. A slew of other bands, you know, they're all quite integrated. So I guess there's that scene. But to me, it still very much feels like a smaller city. So I don't know of any gore grind bands here that are kicking around. I know that there's a couple, there's some cool grindcore bands, you know, and there's some stuff happening across the country. But as far as, you know, death metal and like brutal music and a scene for it, I mean, yeah, people listen to it, but I wouldn't say that it's swelling at the seams with bands. I feel like the closest bands to us in Vancouver are probably Arcspire, who we haven't played with. I guess we do get lumped in with that tech death thing, which is a bit odd for us, but it happens.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I think have the like dexterity of tech death. You have the, oh man, I'm kind of gonna botch this word, but it has that pointillistic kind of quality to it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like very staccato, just like individual notes, but it never feels like overly indulgently noodly, and that kind of makes sense because it sounds like you've been balanced out with other influences. And you mentioned, you know, the other scene, the Black Death scene there. So it just sounds like, you know, you guys are kind of maybe a perfect fit there to kind of almost be like the perfect bridge between this like tech death, you know, hyper virtuosic, if that's the right word, and the more like guttural and I almost want to say like emotional side of death metal. But what were like the influences going into you doing Atræ Bilis? Because like all your past projects were like not exactly along those lines from what I could look up online.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways they weren't. In some ways, Atræ Bilis actually very much reminds me of the very first band that I was ever in as a teenager. It feels like, in some ways, to me, anyways, like a much more kind of like evolved and grown up version of that band. Unfortunately, that band never released anything, but you know, the Melbourne and surrounding scene back around the time that we were active were very supportive of the band. As far as inspiration and influences on this band, we've genuinely never sat down to have a discussion or establish some kind of end goal sonically with the band. It's always been very natural and within our abilities. And, obviously that has changed over time. The more that we play, it feels like our ambitions grow, but also comes more naturally because when you start touring and things, it becomes easy to play your instrument. But Luca the drummer's from a black metal background. This is the first time he's ever played death metal. I've played death metal before, but not really guitar. I guess like death grind and gore grind, brutal stuff like that was kind of what I was doing before this.
I thought you were in like a slam band, weren't you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that band is I guess it reminded me of a if you're talking about the Hmong, it kind of in my world, anyways, it reminded me of a mashup of like Pungent Stench and Blood Dust meets like Devourment or something. Like it definitely had those big slam elements, but it was very kind of on the nose, sleazy kind of gore grind inspired as well. But there were other projects that I played in that nobody really got to hear. I played in an instrumental band, which was probably my favorite band that I've ever been in.
Wow.
And I guess that was kind of like I don't even know what you call that. It was kind of like a post sludge band, but not in the pretty way. It was very dissonant. Imagine if Converge were to try and play like Mogwai or something,
Amazing.
It was super fucking sick.
That sounds like ISIS.
Yeah, kind of, but it was bigger and I guess more urgent sounding than ISIS.
Okay.
But thankfully, I guess playing with so many musicians along the way, it's kind of informed me and my voice through my instrument now. So yeah, big ups to everybody that had time to jam with me. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. So then how did you arrive at Atræ Bilis? Because like you're saying you didn't really talk about a vision for the band, like influences or anything, but you've got a name that from what I understand is a reference to Robert Burton's The Anatomy of Melancholy, and the titles of your albums are all very interesting. Like I think they're just made up words, so there is like something you're kind of creating, like you have a vision there. Like, can you kind of take me through that? What is the world of Atræ Bilis then?
Although there was no vision, I guess like at its most fundamental phase, when Luca and I jammed for the first time, I was just pulling a guitar sound through an amplifier that I was borrowing in the same jam space. I didn't actually own an amp at that time. It was that fresh into coming back onto guitar. And Luca just asked like, "Oh, what's that riff? That's kind of cool." And we just played around, and that very day we wrote I guess the spine of what was to become the song Sulphur Curtain on our first EP, demo, whatever you want to call it, Divine Nihility. So like most of our, I guess, most memorable riffs and moments and stuff, it genuinely almost 80% of the time comes from me just kind of dialing in my guitar sound without even thinking about it. So I don't really know how that fits into like a vision. I think it without sounding pretentious or fucking whatever, like it genuinely does feel like this music is just a product of either the chemistry that we have, or there's an energy in the room that we tap into, or it's something else. I'm not sure, but it feels like it's larger than the sum of its physical parts anyways. And as far as lyrics are concerned, and the band name, we'll start with the band name. The band name did come from The Anatomy of Melancholy, and that was the book that I was reading when I met Luca. And it's quite a chunky book. It's a bit of a roach killer. So I was reading it over the course of a couple of months. And to anybody that has read it's quite a famous book now. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Would say that I would say that The Anatomy of Melancholy is effectively that book, just written a few hundred years before it. And so it's got the same ideas. And I don't know. I guess at that point in my life, when I was trying to figure out a bit of grief and things, that book was a voice of reason. So when we were throwing around name ideas, that one had just kind of stuck out for a few reasons. One, it wasn't overt in the sense that once you do the Latin translation into English, it's almost like a discovery of what the band name actually means, which we felt was cool, and I guess somewhat probably on brand with our music. It takes a few attempts to really understand what's going on, I feel like, by design.
You were talking earlier about how you're such a productive person and it makes you feel more isolated. And when I was reading up about Atræ Bilis, which is black bile, that was something to do with I think man coming to terms with that kind of like angst, of like being isolated and like processing on your own. Is that right? Am I getting that right there?
I mean, that's certainly what I was feeling at that point of, I guess, study, learning, listening, whatever you want to call reading a book that connects with you. My interpretation of the term being used was it was effectively a name for a malady that was used to describe a person suffering or diagnosed with melancholy. They have the black bile in them. It's the feeling. This bilious sense. So that's what I interpreted the name to mean. But I don't speak Latin, and the translation that I read was probably somewhat a little different to Robin Burton's raw thoughts. But it's a great book. And I guess when it came to the rest of the band's expression lyrically and with its themes, it's interesting that you bring up this sense of solitude, because when we were putting together the lyrics for Divin Nihility, I guess lyrics almost, it felt like I was the low hanging fruit to be the lyricist, in that we wanted it to be serious. We didn't want it to be, joking, or, we wanted to stay away from the typical death metal tropes of, misogyny and violence and, glorifying any of that. And we also, for me anyways, I've always kind of felt like lyrics where a person or people, the center of a lyric comes across quite narcissistic and almost egomaniacal, in my personal opinion. I don't do music to be me. I feel this way. This is how I feel about you. Like, it's okay. I got a therapist. I talk to my therapist about that stuff. I try and, so speaking in the third person narrative and kind of creating a world and scenes and stuff it just felt more fitting, and felt that it might be more expansive to the sonic palette of our music. So, I was it's interesting because every album we've done, I've been in totally different states, really. So Divinity Hillity, I was using a lot of psilocybin.
Okay. That's very West Coast of you.
Yeah. That the Divinity Hillity lyrics seem to really really strike a chord with a lot of people. So I don't take full credit for those lyrics. I feel like my spirit guides definitely help me with those. Apex Apian was, I guess, through the throes of COVID, and I guess by nature of the beast, just kind of being inside a lot of the time. Well, all the time, really. I was just smoking a lot of herb. I was just riffing stoned as shit and just reading stoned as shit. So Apex Apian was definitely, it was a stoned fucking record. And then Aumicide, okay. I was like, it felt like I was much more kind of clean-headed in the sense that, not that I felt like I was relying on other compounds previously, but I was able to take some pretty profound psychedelic experiences, and through the clarity of what I had learned through those experiences, kind of synthesize those with what felt like a little more focus. So, yeah. And I guess, as the band has gone on, these primary ideas that spark an interest for a concept, just, they seem to just hit at just the right time. And, I feel like I've got a pretty good idea of what our next record's going to be like. And, yeah, it's going to be a pretty dark one. So.
Ooh. Well, Aumicide, am I saying it right? What does that word mean? Because I tried to Google it. It doesn't exist. And so it's like the death of something, right? Like the killing of something. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So the mantra, Om, is also spelled AUM, Om, which is the sound of the universe itself. Yeah. So it's the vibration of the universe. It would have been great if the word homicide didn't exist, because we would have probably spelt it Aumicide. But because homicide exists, the algorithm just automatically attaches an H to the front of that. And that is so far away from what the band's themes are about. It just didn't work. So in meditation, Om, it's too fast to be meditating, but just to explain, it's the death of the universe, or the oneness of the interconnectedness. So that's probably why you hadn't found it.
Yeah,
but that's effectively where it came from. Yeah, we definitely try not to, if we're making up words, it's either because there's a limitation with the words that I am aware of that exist to truly kind of represent and paint a scene, or I just kind of haven't come across them. So there have been times where, we actually even kind of adopt lines from other languages in quotes and things, because they express things more cogently than, what our toolbox has available to us. But, in the grand scheme of things, language is something that I'll I didn't go to school for language. So I'm just trying my best with the artistic liberty that I have,
Yeah. Well, the good thing about you making up these words, though, in that I couldn't find a Google definition of homicide. All it did was bring up your album. So SEO nailed it. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of a good idea, I think, for death metal bands, because I think we're kind of at a point now where we're fairly, I guess, oversaturated by a lot of OSDM tribute, or I don't want to say tribute bands, but bands that are kind of like reusing the same ideas, imagery, words, everything. So having a band called Atræ Bilis with Aumicide, you guys are going to stand out because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that it's for everybody, and that's cool. I'd like to think that it's death metal music for death metal listeners. It's for everybody really, but I feel like the people that really get it. I mean, you can see it in our stats. The people that listen to our music most are between the ages of mid 30s to mid 40s. So these are lifers. Oh. These are people that have been listening to death metal. It's in their blood, has been for decades, which to me really kind of signifies the value of our contribution to people that take this music very seriously, which I think is super cool. There was another point that I was going to make up, but I smashed my French press last night, and so my level of coffee is not as high as it would typically be. So don't mean to be too scatterbrainy, but yeah, there was another train of thought that I was thinking of.
No, because I was bringing up the OSD. I feel like I was bringing up the OSDM.
Oh, there we go.
Oversaturation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. There you go. Yes. So to kind of, I agree. That's cool. I guess like everything, there's 30-year cycles as to what's trendy and what's hip and stuff. So, like people bringing flares back in the 90s, we've got bands from the 90s, kind of becoming in vogue again. It's cool. I mean, I think with Atræ Bilis, the thing that I'm really grateful for is when I'm away from our music long enough that I can listen to it from an observer's perspective. It makes me have a sense of wonderment that I used to feel when I was first going down the rabbit hole of really heavy bands, when I made the transition into listening to bands like Cryptopsy and Deeds of Flesh, and there were these worlds in these albums that just didn't exist in like the Obituaries and the Bolt Throwers and all that stuff. And that's cool. I guess like if you're a passive listener, cool, that's going to scratch your itch. But if you're an active listener, I mean, I'll be the first to say I'm not a fan of Obituary. I'm not a fan of Bolt Thrower. Like, cool, I'm not everybody. Like, I haven't got the mind of like the common. I don't want to say common, but I mean like it doesn't. It really doesn't excite me, but it excites a lot of people. So they're doing something right. But I like much more cerebral stuff to escape to. Like if I want feel simple and stuff, I'm not going to go to death metal for simple. I mean, death metal to me is supposed to be scary. It's supposed to feel like a force. It should feel like an energy field that just completely and utterly dominates you. A good heavy fucking record, whether it's hardcore or death metal or whatever, should have you at its mercy. I like that space. I like music to have a power and an aura that is frankly like inspiring.
Yeah, I agree. It's I don't mind Bolt Thrower and Obituary, but I have a hard time listening to a lot of thrash for that reason, because I find when music becomes too predictable is when I get pushed away from it. You do need that sense of curiosity and excitement, and it needs to come out of something that feels like very human and expressive. Emotion is a big thing too, and I think sometimes it's hard to capture that in death metal. But yeah, I think it does have to come from a more original place, which I feel like Atræ Bilis is definitely doing. And you guys are part of a lot of like, there's a lot of bands I've been seeing this year getting called like dissonant death metal. Do you feel like that's kind of an accurate genre descriptor for you guys?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't necessarily I don't know how I feel about, I guess, tags in like, I know this sounds generic, but when you tag a band, it whether you like it or not, it lumps like a preconception about that band before you've been able to kind of arrive at your own opinion for. And so when I think about dissonant metal bands anyways, my mind goes straight to bands like Deathspell Omega and Ulcerate and Latter Year Gorguts, and they're all fucking killer bands. But, a lot of their records, it's just that. It's if you listen to Obscura or any of the Ulcerate albums, it's as I said, I love these bands. I genuinely do. This is not a cop out. They're the kings of this stuff for a reason.
Yeah.
But it's a mood, it's a vibe, and that's kind of where you're at, and that's cool. Like if you want to feel one emotion for 30 to 60 minutes. Fucking go for it. But this band, in my opinion, I mean, I could be completely fucking wrong here, and that's fine too. Like if you don't agree with it, you're right with what your experience of it is. But Atræ Bilis to me is more than that. It's storytelling, and there are parts of our story that there's contrast and there's counterpoint, and if there's dissonance, there's also going to be melody. And if there's melody, there's going to be brutality. And if there's brutality, then there's also going to be, pause and silence and, all that kind of stuff, which I don't necessarily always fits with a lot of the disso death scene. So but I do get it. I do get that the dissonant moments of our songs are full tilt. I mean, like, it's not a little bit of disso death. Like, it's very fucking disso death in a lot of our music. So I get it. Yeah. But on the same token, maybe there's just a limitation of, the right descriptors here. But, I mean, when Dave at $20 Spin was putting together the press release and, he kind of shot it over for our review, it was crazy to hear what he heard. I guess vocally he made the connection to bands like Circle of Dead Children, which... to me sounded like, I mean, I love Circle of Dead Children, but it sounded to me like that band was really interesting in that they were hardcore kids trying to play death metal from, around the East Coast. But now if you were to say, oh yeah, there are hardcore kids trying to play death metal, you've got Sanguisugabog worship bands. It's like totally different, just like across the ages. So, it's an interesting thing. I think, maybe this is a little bit of a time capsule, but if we were to listen to this interview 20 years from now and just kind of observe how, music scenes kind of evolve and devolve and shapeshift, across time, it'll be interesting to see how Atræ Bilis kind of holds up with its tags, and whether it was a product of its time or whether it was something else entirely. But yeah, I don't know. I guess people are going to call it whatever they want. I also don't agree that it's tech death, but apparently if you riff and you've got riff functionality. It's technical, which is to me also just like a huge indicator of like the sign of the times. I think death metal has become, as a whole, anyways, the riff quality is like it's pretty low. It's pretty low. I mean, there's some sick shit, but
wow. I didn't expect you, David, to come on here and just start throwing shade like this. So. But it's okay. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I love it too. I was gonna say, the thing I loved about Atræ Bilis when I first heard you guys was that, to me, you sounded like what I want to hear when I put on tech death. When I put on the tech death bands I've heard, I feel like there's something like overly robotic, overly mechanical, overly it just, I don't know why I think of like a light bright for some reason. It just sounds so plasticky, and just something's missing for me. And when I heard Atræ Bilis, I was like, oh, it sounds like people that can play that kind of music decided to make something more human and authentic and like resonating more with me, and I love the dynamics. I love the cinematic qualities of it, the choir vocals, the like what, okay, is it like a noise gating that you do, or a tremolo where it's just like like cutting back and forth? Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's a really fast rate tremolo.
Okay.
When we were recording with Christian, who produced Aumicide, just I guess for anybody listening that kind of needs to connect dots, Christian also plays guitar in Cryptopsy, who are a very important band both in Canada and beyond. But Christian was awesome because he was into the wildest ideas. Be like, oh fuck, maybe this is too tech, maybe we should dial it back. He's like, but why? Like he was just like, he's like, no, more is good,
Yeah, of course.
So Christian was awesome, but it was interesting working the other way, where with that tremolo effect, it was really very subtle. And it's like, no, more. And he's like, that's a lot. And it's like, no, it's not enough. It's like more, more. And I still get this image of my head of every time that particular moment of song comes up, because he would do this. Fuck, I love you, Christian. He'd sit in his chair and he'd hold all of his appendages out straight as if he was getting like electrocuted. That's
amazing. Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
But that I was trying to recreate. Oh my god, I sound like such a heavy drug user, which I assure you I'm not. But I was trying to recreate a pretty interesting experience I had, where my sight and vision effectively became blinkers. And the best way to describe it was almost like experiencing life, looking through one of those sights where, do you remember that it was like a diorama that they used to illustrate to kids how cartoons were made, and there were these little slides of like I don't know, let's say it was a horse galloping, and you spin it around, but every time you spin it, there was just like a little black but there was just like a black interruption where the next cell would start, and everything kind of became like almost jolty and slow motion. That's I was having full-fledged conversations at this party for about 45 minutes, where my entire experience was like this sound, sight, everything. And it was such an interesting feeling. I wanted to recreate that in that section of music. And so the tremolo effect.
What were you on?
I couldn't even tell you. It was kind of like day 3. It was kind of like day 3 of just like, I think it was just it was a concoction. I mean, I do know what the bases of a few things I had were, but I guess anybody that was in Melbourne around the time those fucking pink Mitsubishis were something else. So,
there's a short film that you need to watch. You can find it on YouTube. It's from, I think, the 70s. I can't remember the director's name, but it's called Atman. I'll send you the link for it. It's Atman, and the director did. I don't know if you're familiar with a film called Funeral Parade of Roses. I think the director's name is Toshio Matsumoto. Atman, it's like 10, 15 minutes long, and it's exactly what you're talking about. Like it's so amazing. Well done, but it's just like a samurai with like a ghost mask moving across the beach, and it's just like shuddering and then shuddering more and more. I promise you will say, "Oh, that's exactly what I felt," but maybe a little bit better.
Amazing. I'm gonna.
I'll send you the link.
Please do. Yeah, I'll forward it on to Rob Zawistowski, who is our videographer that worked on all of our video clips, because he loves this kind of stuff, and
cool.
He imbibes these ideas. He's just got the coolest mind. So yeah, I'll definitely pass that on to him as well. He'll really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. I feel like because you don't have all the time in the world, you are actually, after this podcast, going to see one of the best films of the year. But we should talk about your other venture, which is Fulci Rots, which, I mean, of course, Fulci rules. That's one of the first shirts you put out. What inspired you to do a Fulci themed shirt line?
So, God, I'm just painting such a pessimistic fucking view of myself. But I guess the
no.
I guess the theme of the chat here is I got like a little upset that I was buying boots from other bootleggers that felt like, frankly, were really overpriced just to get like pretty average quality fucking boots.
Okay.
So, I guess I can justify what I do in like a couple of different ways. I mean, I've made so little money over so many creative and artistic endeavors over what feels like lifetimes at this point, that I just create for the sake of creating. So that's I guess I'd like to be creative. That's probably like all I really need to say to it. But when I was trying to express myself by supporting other designers, to just kind of somewhat be like a poster of bands and movies and stuff that I really like, just kind of looked a little shitty. So I just thought, fuck it. There's a few designs for some things I want to buy that just don't exist. So what do I do? Like everything in life, just kind of figure out how to do it myself. And then I'm also just going to rely on making sure they look and fit good by working with my friends that know how to screen stuff properly and, actually kind of take a little more time with it. There are some amazing, there are amazing bootleggers, but I think, the one or two occasions where I just felt a little, soured by the experience, I just thought, look, if they can do it, I can do it. Like there's nothing anybody can't do. I don't think I'm the best at anything, but if I want to do something, like I'm going to give it a crack. So that's basically really how it started. I was actually going to drop another design this week, but I think I'm gonna wait until next Thursday. I'm still trying to figure out, the best way to do this, because I've noticed now that, I guess like the stress of money is a big thing for a lot of people. So it's important to kind of time things around when people get paid, because I'm not really like that. Like I don't really buy stuff like when I get paid, like, but a lot of people need to and like to, and that's kind of how they organize their finances and stuff. So I need to
I'm kind of like that.
Yeah. So I think it's best that I try and organize my drops that fall over 2 pay periods. So like if you miss 1 pay period, there's another pay period coming up, and then close the pre-orders kind of thing. So I think I'll time the next drop for that, just to make sure that everybody can kind of get one that wants one. And of course, leftovers will be put on the site later, but that can be quite some time away. And then I've got a cool idea that might tie into the US election coming up. So it's important that I get this next drop done before that following one. So I've got some really cool ideas, and it's not just movies. There are some books and other creatives and things I think are definitely worthy of branding. And it seems like people that are horror and horror adjacent have got a lot of similar taste, I would say. Like, I think it's pretty safe to think that we're all on that wavelength, not just in front of our TV, but other things. So I'm really trying to, I'm not trying to do anything, but I feel confident that, there'll be a couple of more unique and more special things down the pipe for Fulci Rots for people to kind of get excited about. It won't just be, obscure films.
I'm excited about the book idea. Do you mind teasing a bit of that? Can you drop any names or titles?
Well, I mean, I can and I can't. I mean, I guess the only anxiety that I have about that is that if somebody else was to listen to this, they may be a little more prompt with their timeline and just whip something out that I've already got in my back pocket ready to drop before me. That's the only thing I kind of worry about. So, and a lot of different Buddhas do a lot of different things. There are Buddhas that do just do books, and some that just do like soundtracks, and some that just do video games and stuff. So, I can't really read the minds of too many, what other designers and people have got down their pipeline. There's a few people that I talk with on Instagram, and, we'll talk about ideas, and they're very cool. But some people can be really kind of cold and just, that's a cool idea. I'm going to make it mine and nobody will know kind of thing. And, if you do that, you're a fucking asshole, but whatever. I'll let them drop when they drop. I mean, we can talk offline. Definitely. I can let you know what's going on.
But sure. Yeah. I remember one of the companies I've gotten, I got a Paul Verhoeven hat from. They also did a Joan Didion hat shortly after, and I was like tempted to get it. I can't remember why I didn't, but I feel like, certain authors, certain books, you could tap into something really cool there, and not necessarily horror stuff. I mean, Stephen King probably could get you like a good amount of sales, but I'd love to see something a little. Do you know Kobo Abe?
No.
He wrote Women in the Dunes and The Face of Another, a few other books, but his books are, they became like really classic Japanese films on top of them being these classic Japanese books. I mean, if you have, I feel like you should, have a kind of a passion for it. So I wouldn't necessarily say like, now go make a hat or a shirt for him, but
sure.
Yeah. Just an author like that to me would be really interesting.
There you go. I mean, like even just opening up this dialogue makes me feel very excited. So I think the other thing I'm trying to gauge is whether I do single shirt or double shirt drops. I mean, I love the idea of doing double, triple shirt drops so there's more options for people.
Yeah.
But realistically, that kind of places just a little more financial stress on the production to do it, because being screen printed, you need minimum order numbers. They're not direct to garment, which, basically means, oh, cool, I need one of these printed and it's going to be digital. That's not how screen printing works. They have to make the screens, and they put the squeegee on the fucking shirt, and they press the ink over it several times. They lift the screen, they do the next one, and it stays in the shirt forever. So doing 2, 3, 4 shirts at a time, it's cool if your pre-orders are huge and you're very well established. But, if you're kind of just getting into the game and your reach isn't as far because the algorithm doesn't know you, or people aren't sharing as many of your posts just because there's fewer people following you, it's just more of a risk. So, I think the next one's going to be a single shirt, and then we'll see how that goes. If that picks up, then I'll do a couple of shirts. But yeah, just trying to kind of figure out the lay of the land. How people. I've also got to be conscious of Christmas. Christmas is coming up. People are going to have less money to spend around that time naturally.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these other kind of factors that I'm trying to consider too. Yeah, I'd love to see more books. There's a couple of. Yeah, there's the awesome thing about books too is, I guess a lot of people do this for movies too, but I just find that there's just such a breadth of incredible quotes that just need to be slapped on things, and just so many ideas floating around that I think books for me, they there's so many things going on with books that it's like, how can you condense these ideas onto just like a single front print? Like I'd need at least a back print, and if there's long sleeves, I'd want these ideas, these quotes running down here, or these, so yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to share, a chunk from the bank with you offline.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sweet. Thank you. But, Absolutely. With it being called Fulci Rots, do you have any Fulci films lined up that you're going to be doing shirts for?
Possibly. It kind of, I didn't even know that Fulci Lives Film Week was going to be coinciding around the time that I kind of became present. Fulci Rots to me is a play on the Fulci Lives.
Okay.
And I again, I love Fulci. I don't mean to offend anybody, but to me, Fulci's most known, I guess, like in pop culture lens, the pop culture lens is through, his zombie films, his undead films, right?
Sure.
And so this whole Fulci Lives thing is like, well, he's dead. Okay. He lived, but he's dead. And like his zombies, he's in the fucking ground and he's decomposing. R.I.P. Love you, Fulci. But he's dead in the ground and he's rotting, and he's rotted to fuck right now. So Fulci Rots, it's kind of just more like, it's kind of it's an ode to Fulci Lives, but it's also, a little more cynical and realist and dark and I don't know, me, I guess. Fulci Rots, dude.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it came from.
So, yeah, I guess I'm learning a lot about you, because I was expecting you to be like some diehard Fulci fan, and you're not.
I love Fulci, but I think I don't know that there's any single mind, whether whether they're a philosopher, whether they're an author, whether they're a musician, director.
Yeah.
I don't know that I love any one person's ideas fanatically enough to call myself like an obsessive over any specific individual. So yeah, I don't love Fulci any more than I love, say, like Gaspino, or Todd Solondz, or like
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Solondz is big for you, eh? Because for me, I worshipped Welcome to Dollhouse, Happiness. I went to go see like all of his films after that in the theaters. But once we got to Life During Wartime, I kind of had to hang it up. I just haven't been able to keep up with them.
Okay.
Are you? But you're beginning to end the whole filmography. Wow.
Yeah, I love them all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love them all. I think what I love most about Solondz is his pace, and it's the space between his dialogue and his scenes that just put me into that very unique Todd Solondz feeling. And I actually feel that although, I can think of one film where I don't particularly feel as strongly about of his, and that's Palindromes.
Yeah, I agree.
I will rewatch that once every 18 months, but
wait.
It's usually just
every year and a half you watch Palindromes?
Yeah, typically. I mean, I think, Todd Solondz hasn't got a huge oeuvre of work, so it's pretty easy to bust out his films in a weekend, right?
Okay.
If you're not too busy. So that's usually how it goes. Yeah. It's usually the case where I have a friend who hasn't been introduced to Todd Solondz. So it starts with Happiness.
Yeah.
And then, and then we start going down. And Palindromes, it's not the last one to be watched. It's usually second or third from the end, before we have a bit of a palate cleanser, which is needed if it's thrown in to the mix. But his ideas are still there. He's just expressed it in a different way, I feel like there's always that missing character in all of his films that doesn't necessarily always, doesn't manifest in screen time. Wiener Dog to me is cancer. A lot of other people have got different opinions on like what that film is about. But I guess that's the other aspect. Or the other dimension of his films that I appreciate. You can learn a lot about a person watching a Todd Solondz film. They're either like, this is disgusting, or they will crack a rib laughing. And I prefer to be hanging out with the person that's laughing, right? So
I think it's you straddle both. You accept that what you're watching is so depraved or depressing or cynical, but you still laugh. There's some great moments.
How can you not?
Oh yeah.
It's just
it's hilarious for sure.
Amazing.
For sure. I do realize that we are slowly running out of time. Because you have a hard out at 2 p.m. That's right.
Yeah, about then. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
cool. Well, we're coming up there, so I should move on to the questionnaire before we let you go.
Sure, awesome.
But yeah, if anything, David, you should just come back on at some point.
Awesome.
I do a season every year. Would love to have you come back on, and we could even just focus on movies solely, because hearing your passion about Todd Solondz is very unique. Not a lot of people still talk about that guy. So I just want to pick your brain even more because of that.
Okay. So like on that, just before we make our segue, can I just hear finally that Criterion have decided to put out Happiness? The first time that I watched this, I was like,
yeah.
Like, come on, like this is its home. I don't know what's going on about that, but I'm very happy to see, to know that Todd Solondz's spines will be in their famous closet now, and I'm hoping that more of their guests will be picking it up and talking about it and kind of letting people know about his work. Because to me, he's very, very important. And, this whole suburban lifestyle that, the majority of people live in have got a lot to relate to in his films. So much more human and humane than I think most people really think about. So but would love to come back and talk about Todd Solondz. Let's do it.
And just on that note, definitely think it's well deserved. However, I was a little bit more excited that they finally are putting out the Greg Araki trilogy of Nowhere, Doom Generation, and I haven't actually seen Totally Fucked Up, but Nowhere is a film that has had like 0 releases, and seeing that in high school was just like mind blown. I showed it to my wife a month ago, and her mind was blown. Are you familiar?
I've never seen it. No.
Oh, it's so good.
What is it? Give me the 20-second kind of speed run.
20 seconds. Okay, Nowhere is like a teen comedy on acid, extremely like disturbing and fucked up, almost kind of like John Waters, but in the 90s.
Okay.
I don't even know. Like very... I don't know. You have to, like, if you have the Criterion Channel, Nowhere's on there. Doom Generation's also really good. But I think it's like similarly 90s and essential, like Salons, but coming at it from a different angle. Just very like weirdly surreal and satirical and over the top. There's like aliens in it, but then there's like some of the most disturbing scenes ever in it. Well, okay, maybe not the most disturbing, but fairly disturbing, especially contextually. But anyways, we should get to this.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, you'll like it, I think. I hope. I don't know. Okay, questionnaire. Tea or coffee?
It depends on the time of the day. I'm usually doing both. So I can't get my workout in without a coffee or green tea. Green tea, I feel better, but a coffee, I'm up, I'm at 'em, I did just fucking smash my French press last night cleaning my kitchen. And I want a nice replacement. So I might be on the green teas for another few days anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, I would, but it's both. And, I love a tea during the day at work, just kind of chilling, getting that warm magic in me. Yeah, I'm both. I'm a slut for both. Fuck it. Can I say both?
Gun to the head.
Okay. Oh, fuck. In that case, it's got to be tea because tea, I can get to sleep and I can get caffeinated. Coffee I love more, but it's less functional than tea broadly.
Tea. Fair enough.
But I would never go out and be social with a tea. So
yeah,
it's a hesitant tea.
Okay. Okay. Choose one film for the rest of your life.
Oh fuck. Okay. Speaking of happiness, it's probably got to be happiness. Yeah, I would say happiness is my, in a strange way, that's a comfort film for me now too, which says a lot about me.
Wow.
But yeah, I would genuinely say happiness. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my last guest, Sam Deegan, picked In the Realm of the Senses. So I feel like, you're in good company, like people just want their fucked up movies. to watch for the rest of life.
To me, it's a comedy though. I genuinely, maybe that's just an indicator of like my past trauma or my my dark humorist side. Like I don't know, but it's so so fucking funny to me that like it's a comedy. Like I never don't laugh out loud watching it, and the performances in it are fucking hilarious. Like it's you know, a fucked up movie to me, like, you know, would be something like maybe Mortem or you know, a Roscoe the Embalmer, or like something that's just like very like real, but like in a not fucking funny way. Which, you know, I love those films, but you know, that's they're more of those, you know, like but to me, I genuinely don't, and yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll be incarcerated for this, but I genuinely don't think that there's anything that is like sinister about happiness. Like, yeah, sure, there are themes that are like very fucked up and very illegal and very like predatory, but it's still it's like it's so tongue in cheek and like it's like it's provoking laughter as opposed to just like provoking. I feel like
I see what you're saying.
I'm sure that
okay, if you had to be an animal, which would you choose?
Well, I mean, I could say I am an animal. I am human. Humans are animals. But I guess if I was going to be an animal, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I guess I'd want to be a traveler, and I guess the animals that kind of come to mind that get to migrate all over the world are like ocean birds, you know, like albatrosses and stuff. And that's not saying that I'd want to be like big and eat seafood, because I fucking do not enjoy seafood at all, or any meat, but especially not seafood. But I guess just being able to kind of just like, just go from place to place and just travel would be pretty fucking cool. I'd want to travel as an animal. Yeah. And
I like that.
You know,
that's a good answer.
Something scary's coming. Just get the fuck out of there. You know, you don't have to duel to death. Yeah. You don't have to like just bail.
Get out. Okay.
See ya.
What happens when we die?
I believe in rebirth.
Okay.
I don't. You know, I don't necessarily know that maybe we come back as people all the time, but I personally feel that it would be pretty ignorant to think that with serious spiritual work that you can genuinely convince yourself that just because this, you know, meat vehicle stops, that your soul goes with it. So the soul goes somewhere else, and you know, life, you know, I mean, that's a pretty metaphysical definition here. I mean, I think consciousness is like existence. Is that life? You know, I don't know. I mean, who's to really tell us that like everything that we're experiencing in these rooms and through these headphones or whatever is even fucking material? Like, it could just be a product of something else. So yeah, I would say that if our physical body exists and if the physical body dies, our soul goes elsewhere, and you know, I think it can come back. It can be manifested, you know, potentially in another body that is either earthly or from beyond. Yeah, I guess we'll figure it out in another 40 years or something. I don't know.
Or when you're taking pink Mitsubishis.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my cold still. Okay. Last question.
Oh, dude.
Then you're on your way, but this is a big one. Song title that best describes your life.
Oh my God. It's an interesting question to ask somebody that like writes songs and expresses themselves through songs, because truth be told, I don't really sing along to too many of other people's songs. And lyrics, I don't, for the most part, I don't always feel so connected with, which sounds pretty fucking bleak, really, now that I'm hearing myself saying that. But a song that best describes my life. Fuck, I don't know. I overthink fucking everything. So I don't know. What was that song that Adam Sandler fucking sang in The Wedding Singer? Somebody Kill Me Please.
Oh, okay.
Was
that what it was called?
This song's between easily, like, he's been like, I've been listening to The Cure a lot lately, or something. No. That's not my final answer, but I think it would. I don't know. It would. I don't know. I'd probably have to look through my Spotify playlist to kind of jog a song title, but it would be something along the lines of just shut my mind off and just give me a vacation from thinking for an hour.
I think it's the song you guys wrote, Kingdom of Cortisol. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I love that title.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah, there were a few. So Inward to Abraxas, Kingdom of Cortisol, and Monolith of Flame were like a 3-part, or like three very, very strongly connected songs lyrically about an experience I had where I met my inner self for the first time. And through that process, I was overcoming a lot of emotional hurdles for me to get to there. And part of the journey inward was confronting a lot of my stress, hence the name Kingdom of Cortisol, the inner kingdom, the inner self, being the kingdom, and cortisol being the stress. So, I guess you're kind of right in that, it's a very personal song, but once you've kind of written about it and got that out of your system, you kind of feel quite relieved of those things. So at the time, but I feel much more chill, and that I got to use music as a genuinely very therapeutic aid for that, and just expressing it it takes it out of you and lets you focus on more positive things. So at a time, but as I said, I battle for quiet sometimes. Like it takes without meditation, without really slowing my mind down, it's just running a million miles an hour,
Okay. Is there any music that you listen to meditate to?
I listen to a lot of ambient music, like electronic ambient music.
Sure.
And like binaural beaty kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And that is really good for like not just deep focus, but when I do go on intentional spiritual trips, that's usually the soundtrack for that. You know, there's no lyrics, you know, it's very passive. It's all about set and setting, right? So I feel very comfortable with that music on. But then again too, you know, I also feel that the heaviest music that we have is not actually metal. I feel like a lot of it's electronic music as well.
Interesting.
I get very
man.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, no, you've got to go. You've got to go. But I just feel like I pretty much stopped 2 years ago, but I had an electronic project for 10 years before stopping it. Awesome. And now like doing the podcast and, you know, trying to do a death metal band. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, I'd love to pick your brain about that because there's some amazing heavy electronic ambient artists out there for sure. 100%.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, yeah, it's, I don't know. Like I don't listen to as much of that shit on tour because like I'm trying to be cognizant of, you know, everybody else in the van and stuff. But to me, I agree with you. Like some of the heaviest shit we have like transcends metal. It's like a heavy industrial or like a heavy GABA record or something is just like fucking like sledgehammers to the head that it fills the entire frequency spectrum by design. Like there isn't a notch that isn't perfectly used, you know, and a lot of that is through the production techniques of ducking and gating, and like it's impossible to fill the frequency range and just the aural spectrum that we can hear as perfectly as electronic music does. And when you've got these beats and when you've got these tempos that are just driving you, it's like no guitars and no drums can do it. I mean, it's crazy now when I listen to like a lot of deathcore, like modern recordings, like when it comes through me, because it sounds more electronic, which really perturbs a lot of like the old guard. But to me, in a strange way, although I don't necessarily think the riffs are that great, like hearing a wall of guitars and hearing drums and synths, like they're trying to do the same thing. It's like, no, let's just fill it all. Like we want this to be completely airtight with intensity. And that's why it sounds so big. And that's why it appeals to so many people. And that's why it's selling so well. And I think, you know, I still think that electronic music will always trump heavy music when it comes to that aspect of presentation. But there's a lot to learn from it for sure. I feel like death metal bands should embrace it.
I hate how right you are, because that is so true, and it's something that I struggle with, you know, especially if I want to listen to music after I've, you know, smoked some herb. Electronic is just the one that's like, oh, my ears don't get fatigued, and it's extremely loud. It's so hard to find music that does that outside of electronic. But you've got to go see The Substance, my friend, and I'm so glad you are. Dude. Yeah, let me know what you think of it, because it's truly one of the best movies of the year. Not to overhype.
Yeah, I'm super excited. You know, the internet's been blowing up about it. I wanted to see it last week, but I ended up going down to Portland. Actually, there was like a big, cool VHS swap meet.
Cool.
Down there, and went to go see Evil Dead the musical for the first time and stuff.
Nice.
So, yeah, so the Substance has been pushed back, but yeah, I'm very excited to see it. From what people have, like, I don't know anything about it yet, so but my understanding is that it's a bit of a body horror, or at least I should expect some body horror elements in it. And it looks like it's got a long run time, so I'm hoping that I'm hoping that is really kind of like an indicator of some pretty serious tension, but we'll see.
You'll be impressed. Just patience is rewarded. I'll say that much.
Nice.
Yeah. But yes, thank you so much, David. It's great having you on. Aumicide is out now on $20 Spin, and Fulci Rots. I believe you have a website, but you're also going to be found on Instagram. You've got some shirts coming out soon. I'll put all the links and everything in the description. And go enjoy your movie, my friend. Great talking with you. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Thanks so much, man. Looking forward to staying in touch and have the best night. Sure. And we'll chat soon.
Yeah. All right. Take care.